The RMS Titanic was more than just a ship, it was a symbol of an era's confidence and ambition. At the dawn of the 20th century, technology was advancing at a breathtaking pace, and the Titanic was its floating masterpiece. Built in Belfast, Ireland, she was the largest and most luxurious passenger liner ever constructed. Her sheer size was astounding, stretching nearly 900 feet long, as tall as an 11-story building. The White Star Line, her proud owners, promoted her as the pinnacle of safety and comfort. They spared no expense, outfitting her with a grand staircase, opulent dining saloons, a swimming pool, and even a gymnasium. She was a floating palace designed to ferry the wealthy and hopeful across the Atlantic in unparalleled style. This magnificent vessel captured the imagination of the world. Newspapers heralded its creation, calling it a marvel of modern engineering. Its design incorporated advanced safety features, including 16 watertight compartments in its hull. These compartments could be sealed off by electric doors, leading many to believe that the ship was practically unsinkable. The night of April 14, 1912, was exceptionally cold and clear. The sea was unusually calm, described by survivors as being like a sheet of glass. This lack of waves, while pleasant for the passengers, would prove to be a deadly factor. Without waves breaking at its base, an iceberg is much harder to spot in the darkness, especially on a moonless night. Throughout the day, the Titanic's wireless operators had received multiple ice warnings from other ships in the area. They were charting a course through a region known to have icebergs. These messages were passed to the bridge, but they did not seem to create a significant sense of alarm. The ship continued to steam ahead at a high speed of around 22 knots, close to its maximum. Captain Smith was adhering to the common practice of the time, maintaining speed, relying on lookouts to spot any danger far enough in advance to avoid it. The pressure to make good time on a maiden voyage was considerable. A swift arrival in New York would be a testament to the ship's power and reliability. As evening fell, the temperature dropped sharply, nearing freezing. Captain Smith retired for the night, leaving First Officer William Murdoch in command on the bridge, with instructions to be called if anything became at all doubtful. In the crow's nest, high above the ship's deck, two lookouts strained their eyes against the darkness, but they were working without a crucial piece of equipment: binoculars. At 11:40 p.m., the unthinkable happened. Frederick Fleet saw it first, a dark mass, darker than the night sky, looming directly ahead. It grew larger with terrifying speed. He immediately rang the warning bell 3 times, the signal for an object dead ahead.
Iceberg, right ahead!
On the bridge, First Officer Murdoch reacted instantly. He ordered the ship hard a starboard, a command to turn the ship to port, left. He also signaled the engine room to reverse the engines, a desperate attempt to slow the colossal vessel. But the Titanic was too large and moving too fast. The commands were given, but there was simply not enough time or distance to avoid a collision. The great ship began to turn. It was a slow, ponderous movement. For a few agonizing seconds it seemed they might just miss the iceberg. Passengers on the starboard deck watched the mountain of ice glide past, so close they could have touched it. Below the waterline, an underwater spur tore into Titanic's steel hull. It wasn't a single huge gash. The ice's pressure popped rivets. It buckled steel plates along a roughly 300-foot stretch. Thin, overlapping wounds opened. Seawater poured into the first 6 watertight compartments. The initial impact felt strangely subtle to many. In the first-class dining saloons, most felt only a slight shudder. Others didn't notice, until the engines suddenly stopped. Below decks it was far more violent. In the boiler rooms there was a deafening, grinding roar. In the third-class cabins near the bow, icy water began to flood immediately. After inspecting the damage, Andrews delivered the grim prognosis. The ship could stay afloat with 4 flooded compartments, but not 6. Andrews gave the captain the ship's death sentence. It would founder. The sinking of the Titanic was not caused by a single mistake, but by a tragic chain of events and misjudgments. The ship's high speed in an area known to contain ice was a critical error, a gamble taken in the name of punctuality. The lack of binoculars for the lookouts further reduced the already slim chance of spotting the iceberg. However, the ship's design, once hailed as its greatest strength, also contained a fatal flaw. The watertight bulkheads did not extend all the way up to the main deck. Perhaps the most catastrophic failure of the night was the insufficient number of lifeboats. While the Titanic fully complied with the outdated British Board of Trade regulations of the time, it carried only 20 lifeboats, enough for just 1,178 people. This was barely half of the 2,224 passengers and crew on board for the maiden voyage. The original design had called for more lifeboats, but they were removed to reduce clutter on the promenade deck and to enhance its aesthetic appeal. The assumption was that the lifeboats would not be needed to abandon ship all at once, but rather to ferry passengers to a nearby rescue vessel. The evacuation process itself was fraught with confusion and inefficiency. There had been no lifeboat drills for the passengers, and even many crew members were unsure of their duties. In the initial stages, a women and children first protocol was followed, but it was applied inconsistently. On one side of the ship, an officer interpreted it as women and children only, launching lifeboats less than half full while men watched from the deck. This disorganization meant that the first lifeboats to leave the ship were tragically underfilled, wasting hundreds of valuable seats that could have saved more lives. Compounding the disaster was the failure of nearby ships to come to the rescue in time. The Titanic's wireless operators, Jack Phillips, Harold Bride, frantically sent out distress signals using the new SOS code. The closest ship, the Californian, was stopped in the ice field only a few miles away and could see the Titanic's lights. However, its sole wireless operator had gone to bed just minutes before the Titanic struck the iceberg. The ship that did respond, the Cunard liner Carpathia, was nearly 60 miles away. Despite steaming at full speed through the dangerous ice field, it would take 4 hours to arrive. Far too late for most. The aftermath of the sinking was horrific. As the Titanic's bow plunged deeper, its stern rose high into the air, creating a terrifying silhouette against the starry sky. At 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, under the immense strain, the ship broke in two and disappeared beneath the waves. Over 1,500 people were left struggling in the freezing water, which was a deadly 28 degrees Fahrenheit or -2 degrees Celsius. When the RMS Carpathia arrived at dawn, it found a heartbreaking scene. A few scattered lifeboats floating amidst a sea of ice and debris, carrying the 706 stunned survivors. The loss of life was staggering, with more than 2/3 of the people on board having perished. The tragedy was felt most acutely in third class, where over 75% of the passengers died, many of them trapped below decks or unable to navigate the complex ship to reach the lifeboats in time. The world reacted with shock and disbelief. How could the unsinkable ship, the pinnacle of modern technology, have met such a catastrophic end on its very first voyage? In the wake of the disaster, sweeping changes were made to maritime safety regulations. Inquiries held in the United States and Great Britain led to immediate reforms. New laws mandated that all ships carry enough lifeboats for every single person on board. Lifeboat drills became mandatory for all passengers and crew, ensuring that everyone knew what to do in an emergency. The International Ice Patrol was established to monitor the location of North Atlantic icebergs and warn shipping traffic, a service that continues to this day. Furthermore, all ships were required to maintain a 24-hour radio watch, ensuring that distress calls would never again go unheard. The story of the Titanic has endured for over a century, not just as a historical event, but as a powerful cautionary tale. It serves as a permanent reminder of the dangers of human hubris and overconfidence in technology. The sinking exposed the fatal flaws in the class-based society of the era and forced a re-evaluation of safety protocols that had been taken for granted. The lessons learned from that terrible night in 1912 were paid for with more than 1,500 lives, but they fundamentally changed the world of maritime travel, making the seas safer for all future generations. The great ship rests today on the ocean floor, a silent monument to both a bygone era of grandeur and a tragedy that must never be forgotten.